I'm very much like Olga. I'll be talking about a solution that it's in production, but this is more about the ability of answering technical questions within a software company. So starting with the basics, this concept was already mentioned in this conference at some point or several points, which is the concept of RAG, that stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And the idea of it is to help answering questions with information that it was not seen before. So in my particular case, what we're doing is giving to AI the company's internal documentation, so it's able to answer technical questions about the different products and solutions that we are selling to other companies. But the key thing here is that AI actually needs to get the most relevant piece of information. Otherwise, it will not be able to produce an accurate question. And this is the part that I will focus a bit more going forward. So jumping right into the problem, with customer support in particular, probably many of you have this at your companies. It's never quick enough. So there's a bit of waiting time to be able to close customer tickets. In our case, the company has been growing due to multiple acquisitions. So the information is all over the place in all kinds of formats and languages. And also, it's a bit hard to maintain all this documentation. So it ends up having some outdated pieces, missing some other pieces. So overall, there's a limited efficiency throughout, and this is kind of what we are trying to fight with our solution. What's the solution? Starting with our primary goals, the accessibility. So in a way, having all the information centralized and very easy to access, and people don't have to figure out where something is. On the other hand, is also being able to have a spot-on answer. Like, I don't want to, there's this FAQ that is very similar and that can answer your question. No, I want a straightforward answer to my question. We want speed. That's the era of efficiency and not losing time. And another important key thing is that I want to easily be able to explore more, to know more about this topic. And also, I want to clarify what's my intent. The very same way when we are talking with a colleague or a stakeholder from another team, I want to say, this is my question. The person answers and no, that's not really what I meant. This is what I meant. And the same thing with the machine. We want to be able to guide it towards our intent and to get this, spot-on answer that I mentioned earlier. So the solution that we made and that we have in production, this is a very high-level diagram. But basically, we take all these data sets from different places, different formats. We put them together. And then we kind of transform it in a way that we can ingest in the model and do similarity search to find this, what I said earlier, the most relevant pieces of information that can produce an accurate answer. And then we assemble everything into ChatGPT and let it do what it does best. Give us back a really nice answer to the question that was made. So I'll go a bit deeper in these steps, not so much on the ChatGPT part, but more about kind of what we did until the moment of getting things into ChatGPT. So starting off with the embeddings and with the transforming the data. So obviously we have to parse it, put it in a nice format. There's XML, there's WordPress. We also do a bit of kind of cleaning unnecessary information. So one of our data sets, it's actually the different technical Slack channels that we have. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of valuable exchange of information there, but at the same time, there's also a lot of garbage. So there's an important thing of cleaning, even like emojis, mentions, and all the private information is also something that we remove. And then we chunk it, because not only from Slack with long threads, but also from our website pages, it can be really big. So we divided it into chunks. And this is important because afterwards, when we're looking for the relevant pieces of information, we want to have nice candidates and to grasp the information that can really potentially answer the question accurately. And then we use the Hugging Face model for producing the embeddings. And for these, a limitation that I'll share with you is the amount of tokens that you can extract from a piece of text. So it's 120 tokens, which, as you can imagine, is not so much. So what we did to overcome that was that instead of representing a chunk of text with an embedding vector, we actually take a vector of embedding vectors. So let's say that I have a piece of text with 500 words. I take every 120 tokens, it's an embedded vector, and then all of that together becomes the representation of the piece of text. And then with that, we are ready to do the similarity search. So basically, a person asks a technical question, we transform it into embeddings, and then we compute the cosine distance towards all the knowledge candidates. And then we take the top ones that are most similar, and we send that to ChatGPT in order to produce an answer. A thing here is just a detail that we are using the SciPy to compute the cosine distance. The distances are computed in C, so everything gets way more efficient, and we really have loads and loads of knowledge. So this is it was a key thing to really improve our latency. As for the implementation, so we started off because our goal was like, okay, let's go quick, let's have people using it. So we just made a Slack bot. That was fairly easy for this data science team to do. It was also very easy to use within our company, like all the employees are connected to Slack every day. So then we kind of can quickly see how people were interacting with it and the type of technical questions that were getting made. But then after a while, we started to feel the need of building a dedicated UI so that we would have a bit more features. What does it mean is that we wanted to go a bit beyond what happens in Slack. So for instance, the chat functionality was something that was hard to support within Slack. So with the UI, we managed to overcome that. And then we have a lot of more freedom to really tailor it for our use case. So two things that we currently have is that we have a piece for validation, so where everyone can see all the questions that all employees have been seeing and the responses that we're making, and they can even go there, okay, I'm an expert, I actually know about this, so I can validate and say that this is correct. And then another thing is the gamification part. So we have a leaderboard to really show who are the most engaged and really have people using it more and more, so we can take those lessons to prioritize what we need to do next. A concrete example now. So this is a screenshot of one of our documentation pages. So you see all these boxes. These are the different products that we have. And this is a screenshot of the database. So we take all the documentation and we put it in the database. So at the top, you see a chunk of text. And then at the bottom, you see kind of the embeddings that represents that text. And then this is a screenshot of the UI. So I'm asking a question about one of our products. I'm getting an answer. We have a few details here that you see, like I can rate it to see how useful it was. And then we also have here, this is a transparency thing where we show the sources. So we share the links that were used to produce the answer, and also the degree of similarity that we got with the cosine distance, so that people can, have a bit more trust in the answer. And now I'll talk a bit about probably one of the most challenging things that we are facing here, which is the performance evaluation. As you can imagine, this is not about inferring whether the sentiment of a text is positive or negative, which is more or less something that we can agree on. This is about deciding whether or not a technical question is accurate. With multiple products, we don't really have anyone that has all that knowledge. So the way we started is that we built a benchmark with the questions that the employees were asking and the ratings that they were giving and so on. And then we're like, okay, we made a change. Let's really evaluate that. Yeah, not so easy. We had to chase down the subject matter experts to provide us, to help us out with deciding if the question is accurate or not. And this takes time. By the time they were finished, we already had moved on with further developments and improvements in the back end. So we could not really use that. At some point, we're like, okay, let's ask the subject matter experts to build a baseline, bullets that should be in the answer so that a person that is not an expert can, more or less evaluate. But still, it was not, because it could put, the answer could include noise that would jeopardize a bit its quality. So now, as I said, we have a validation component where people are validating and can even edit the answer that was given by ChatGPT by changing a little detail or something in the case that it gets inaccurate. So we are seeing how that is evolving over time, really trying to see that we are getting more answers that are producing a correct answer. And then another thing that we are doing is to use ChatGPT to help us decide, okay, were we able to answer this question, yes or no? Because sometimes, as you all know, ChatGPT gives answers like, oh, I'm not really sure, or I'm not able to answer, I don't know enough. So this for us is when ChatGPT is not able to answer, and then we see when it's able to answer. Of course, we have ambitions to have it even a bit more granular in terms of, giving a bit of temperature on how good the answer is. But for now, this is a KPI that we're seeing that we are more and more getting able to answer all questions that we get. And another thing, because efficiency is such an important thing, so this is more an KPI of the usability. So it's not so much about it being super accurate the whole time. It's is it really helping the company being more efficient and lastly getting happier customers? So that's a key factor that we are also looking at. The road ahead. There's so many ideas that I don't even know how to start, but I will start with quality improvements. I think the first one, maybe some of you are asking yourselves and will have that question for me afterwards. Can't we use OpenAI embeddings? Yes, that's next. That's something that we are getting prepared. As I said, we're still kind of looking into having an overview of these KPIs so that we can then really take a decision of, okay, is it really helping? So that's one of the changes that we are going to do soon. OpenAI can accept a lot more tokens, so that will be a big change. Other things that we are looking at is to prepare to answer different types of questions. So let me explain that a little bit. So most of the questions are technical questions. What is this product for? How can I put this feature working? Blah, blah, blah. But then there are some questions that are more like bug reporting, or that require that a support person goes there and investigates the setup that the customer has. So we are still discussing a bit, but there's two ways of tackling that. One of them is, okay, do we want it to trigger a question to the customer so that immediately can ask the metadata that it's necessary to answer that question. Things like, oh, but what's the product that you're using? Or what's the ID of the place where you are? What's the path? So this happens quite a lot, that the first question that a support person within the company has to ask is, okay, but where is it? Where is the problem? And then with the back and forward, we lose a bit of time. And another thing is about not necessarily providing a solution, but providing some steps that could potentially help with the debug of the problem. So basically, with that, we would prepare the model to answer different types of questions and then produce different types of answers. In terms of functional improvements, so we are looking, there's a very cool feature that Slack has that we lost with this change with using the UI, which is the notification part and the ability of tagging people. So this is something that we're looking into building. And then there's other things, as I said, that can help with providing a bit more personalized answer, which is, okay, I want to get more context about this customer or about even the person within the customer that is asking for this question. So really looking, okay, what have been asking, what is the problems that they have been having. Another thing is to use ChatGPT to help us with assessing the priority of the question based on kind of the wording that is used. Is it a bug fix? Do they use the word urgent? These type of things. And then about more use cases. So this is actually interesting, and thanks Olga for the previous presentation, because one of the things that we also do internally is that we have people dedicated to build front-end template code for pop-ups that show up in the customer's website. This is a very repetitive task. So the style changes, there's some details changes, but the core of it is quite the same. So with introducing a lot of our rules in terms of front-end and so on, we can empower it to really suggest the initial template and reduce the time for our front-end people dedicated to that. And then there are also other things like with our request for proposal. So usually when we are in the pre-sales process, we get huge questionnaires asking for technical details so that customers can decide whether or not they are going forward with acquiring our software. And this is very repetitive. There's a lot of the same questions now and then. So we want to also empower our employees to be able to spend a bit less time on that. So overall, kind of our focus is on prioritizing kind of efficiency within the company, in particular with repetitive tasks. To finish, I think after this day and a half now, it's like we can deny it. AI is out there and we cannot run away from it. So we better embrace it and adapt to it and get empowered and do the best that we can to also educate our peers. But there's still something that we have to do. It will not completely remove our jobs. We just have to learn how to use it properly and adjust it to the different use cases, different ideas that are out there. But an important thing, this is true for, I think, every development case, but I will share with you personally that has been a bit of a struggle with having concrete use cases. It's not that we have them, that we don't have them, it's more that we have too many of them. This development process has not been like a straightforward line, like in most of the other projects that I've been developing. So there's a lot of, back and forward, lot of ideas, new releases coming up. So it's a bit hard to really keep your focus. And another thing also, in relation with what we heard in the meeting, is like we need to take a bit of control in this usage of the AI. So we really need to continuously put effort on it and adapt, ensure that we are not introducing bias so that we can really trust that. And lastly, I spend a lot of time talking about performance. This is not a straightforward, this is not a traditional precision and recall things that we are used to in machine learning problems, but we have to adapt and see what are the signals that we really need to look through that represents the idea that our solution is really solving the problem that we are addressing within our business. That's it, guys. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Rita, for the great talk.
Thank you.
So we have lots of questions from the audience. So clear winner here from Daniel Ribeiro, a senior data scientist and tech lead at Norsch. Are you using OpenAI directly? How do you handle sensitive data?
Yeah, so we are using the API. So what we do is that we have cleaned a lot of our data, and in the cases that we are a bit unsure, we just don't send it. But also we had our security team discussing directly with OpenAI, because you can do that with having additional clauses in the contract that you have.
Okay, thank you. So another question from Diogo Geronimo, machine learning engineer at Sword Health. So how do you deal with questions regarding information lacking on the database?
That's an everyday question, because I talked about performance, and if you think about it, there's a lot of stepping stones in order to produce a correct answer. So first, we actually need to have a good question. We need to have the good documentation, and then we also need good embeddings, good way of doing similarity search. So actually, what we are doing is also trying to empower the people that are doing documentation. So this is just an idea, but our idea is try to identify these holes. So for instance, as I said, we have ChatGPT telling us the cases where it was not able to produce an answer. So those are things that we can use to look at and see, okay, potentially there's a problem here, something missing in the documentation. Another thing that we want to do is to also look a bit into, okay, what are similar pieces of documentation? Is something contradicting another one? This is more for outdated data.
So my question, when do you move to a human operator?
We are not at the stage that we don't need a human operator. It's just that the human operator doesn't start with a blank page. It's more empowered to start with really making decisions and changes.
Okay. So another question from Carolina Batista. What happens when ChatGPT is down?
Oh, that's a good one. Luckily, it's not down often, but we do it in a very, let's say, naive way. Maybe we just tell it to. We just give a warning to our people using it and say, try again later or refresh your page. This type of things. We have briefly talked about of eventually building our own LLM, but I think we are still a bit far from that.
Okay. So now a very technical question. Maybe you can answer yes or no from Francisca, AI engineer at Caixa Geral de Depósitos. Would it be advantageous to use ChatGPT to compute embeddings so that the embeddings are in the same latent space to the one in which the text will be generated from?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
So basically, do you see any advantage of having the embeddings that come from ChatGPT in the same latent space as the ones in which the text will be generated from? So
to be honest, I don't really know. I think the advantage that we see now is with the kind of having more coverage on the text and having a bit more complete context.